Hey, it's Larry Ulibarri on the I'm from Denver network. It's political season. There's a lot of political ads going on, but we have Penfield Tate, who's running for Denver City Council at large. And explain to everybody what that is, because I've been explaining it to people and they still don't know what it is.
Sure, Laurie, and thanks for having me here. And if you're from Denver, you need to know that your city council consists of 13 members. 11 of them are district representatives. That is, they represent a certain geographic area of the city. But 2 of the city council members are at large, and that's what I'm running for. The at large members represent the entire city. So they're looking at the city from, their job is to look at it from a more comprehensive citywide perspective. And so what that means is every person in Denver has 3 city council people. You have 2 at large city council representatives and 1 district city council representative. So if your garbage isn't picked up, if there's a barking dog complaint, if your neighbor's being bad, you have 3 different council members you can call to hopefully get some help and support.
How do we get all their numbers?
Actually, they're all on the internet. Oh, wow. So if you go to denver.gov, there's a page for city council, and every city council member has a separate page, and then the office of city council has a page also. And so every city council member has a phone number and an email address, and usually they have a PDF form you can fill out online, and it shoots an email with your concern, your question, whatever.
Well, speaking of concerns and questions, I know that a lot of people in Denver, being a native, kind of don't recognize certain things about the city. I mean, obviously we're growing super fast, and I've always said that, like, you know, Denver was always kind of like advertising, come here. You know, like we would have like Super Bowl wins and movies would be filmed here and things. So we were always kind of advertising Denver. And then it worked and everybody freaked out because everybody moved here. But, you know, now we're seeing like a lot of like homeless encampments everywhere. And what's like something that you think that you can do to fix that?
You know, there are a number of things we can do, Larry, and you're right. I mean, we spent so much time over the years advertising, recruiting, telling people to come here that they came. Then we said, well, come and visit, but don't stay. Just spend money and leave.
Right. Now
and
people
they
are
did
saying,
that too.
Get out.
Now people are saying, yeah, go home.
Right.
But, you know, the issues that face us really are the accumulation of a bunch of bad decisions we've made as a community and at every level of government. And they compound because if you don't, it's like a lot of stuff even in your own household. If you don't deal with a problem early on when you see it and wait and wait and wait, by the time you start dealing with it, it's a massive problem. We've done that with the unhoused. And the plight of the unhoused is tied to affordable housing. Many people in this city, and I'm one of them, feel that we have let developers run roughshod over our city. Mm-hmm. We've let them build whatever they want, wherever they want, and we need development because we're going to grow, but the city has to say, number one, what it needs to look like, because we got some ugly stuff that's been built in the city. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got to be honest about that. But secondly, we have to say what our policy is in terms of development, and we've not done a good job of doing that for years, which is why we have this situation. So while a lot of stuff got built, a lot of it wasn't affordable. Teachers can't afford to live in the city. Cops, firefighters, carpenters, plumbers, they can't afford to live in the city. Right. So the cost to all of us is increased because they factor travel time into their pricing. Schools are having trouble getting quality teachers. Parents get angry, pull their kids out of school and put them in private schools, and so it's cyclical. So you got to start with affordable housing, and that has 2 direct impacts. Number one, but when you talk to providers who work with the unhoused, they will tell you that 40% of the unhoused work full-time. Another 10% work part-time.
Wow.
If those numbers are true, just getting somebody warm and dry and stable transitional housing could lift 40 to 50% of the unhoused off the street immediately.
Right.
And that's why I advocate, you know, as a city council member, if elected, what I want to do is cut a deal with DPS and other property owners of vacant buildings and get those under control and open them up as shelters and transitional housing immediately,
Nice.
including safe outdoor spaces at schoolyards. I don't want the city to run them. We're not good at that. We need to hire the nonprofits out there, and I think this is a great role for the faith-based community that has programs to help run some of these places to lift people off the street and wrap services around them like substance abuse services, mental health. We have women who are escaping domestic violence and men, and we have kids who've just been thrown out of their houses.
Well, yeah, the fact that you said that some of these people that you see on the street are actually still going to work and that's their living is just so sad. And there's a slew of people that are living in their cars. There's people living in vans, and then it goes to campers. So it's kind of like, the gap between people that can afford to live here and can't is just widening.
Oh no, and it's a function of the marketplace because we have let developers build only market rate units,
where the rent ends up being $2,000,
and the price keeps going up and up and up. So, true story. When I bought my first house in Denver, it was in 1984 in Park Hill. I paid $74,000 for a 2-bedroom house, and I thought it was the end of the world. $74,000.
Right.
I'd just gotten out of law school. I couldn't sleep at night. I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage. I wish I could find a 2-bedroom house for $74,000
When you
now.
think about it now, you're like, we should have all bought a couple little houses when they were so cheap.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then rented them out to people.
sure. Airbnb.
Yeah. And if you'd bought them then,
Right.
the mortgage rates were low enough, so you could keep them affordable.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that I've noticed with you is that you have like some of the best endorsements. So I feel that like that alone gives you so much credibility. And like, who do you officially have as endorsing you?
Thank you, and I've been blessed. I've had a career that has spanned a lot of different areas. So I worked for Mayor Federico Pena, the man who told us to imagine a great city, and we built one.
Right.
He's endorsed me.
Right.
I worked in his office, so he knows what I'm capable of. When Governor Romer was governor, I served on his cabinet and ran a Department of State Government. Again, he saw me get things done for his administration. He's endorsed me. When Wellington Webb became mayor, I was an attorney who did a lot of work with and for the city. I'm a finance attorney, so I helped the city issue bonds and build a bunch of things. The Webb building, we remodeled the Sheraton Hotel. We built the Pavilions project downtown. We did Lowry and Stapleton redevelopment, Union Station. I've been involved in financing a lot of projects. Mayor Webb and his wife, the Honorable Wilma Webb, have also endorsed me. Mayor Webb and Mrs. Webb, the Honorable Wilma Webb, both were at different times the state representative for House District 8 in Northeast Denver, and that's where I was first elected to office.
Oh, wow.
I was in the line of succession behind them.
Well, you come from a political family.
Well, I do. My dad was, I grew up in Boulder. When we moved to Colorado, we moved to Boulder because my dad went to CU to do his last year of law school. And my dad was a pretty phenomenal guy. He did 2 years of law school at night while he was an active duty Army officer.
Wow.
And we moved every year. So he went to a bunch of different schools to get 2 years of law school done. We moved to Boulder. He did his third year, and then he became active in the community, and he was elected. He was the first black city council person in Boulder and the first black mayor of Boulder and the only black mayor of Boulder. Wow. And City Hall in Boulder is now named after my dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's something that's close to where I live is formerly Stapleton Central Park. And not far from there, there's an open land area that used to be a golf course that is up for I think there's a big debate of what to do with this land. What do you think should be doing with the open spaces that are left in Denver?
Sure. A former mayor, Robert Spear, used to always describe Denver as the city within the park because he understood that as you grow as a city and develop, you have to maintain a delicate balance between urbanization, but still making sure people who live in a city that's going to be developed more densely still have access to open space and parks. And so I support that vision. And as a result, and partly, I've lived in Park Hill the last 38 years. And the Park Hill Golf Course, which is the site you're talking about, was the golf course I played most frequently. Now, I'm not here arguing to say keep it as a golf course. I don't think we need another golf course. But it's 155 acres of undeveloped land. It's the third largest tract of undeveloped land in the city, behind only City Park and Wash Park. And my position is I'm part of Save Open Space Denver. We have been fighting for the last 5 years to make sure that land stays undeveloped, in large part because we, the people of Denver, own the development rights. Mayor Wellington Webb bought the development rights in 1997, paid $2 million of taxpayer dollars. And so the developer that bought the land now, that's trying to cajole and buy everybody to get them to let
Then
them
put
develop
another
it.
like a bunch of expensive, overpriced places.
That's what's going to happen. They bought the land knowing that it had a legal restriction on it and you couldn't develop. They have spent over $1 million on this political campaign. The ballot measure is 2-0, not 20, but 2 and capital O.
Okay.
And so if you vote no on 2-0, you're voting to preserve the land as open space.
So remember that. Don't be confused by 20.
That's right.
Okay.
2-0, no on 2-0.
Well, I mean, and that's so true because, with, all these corporations taking over everything and all the space, and you hear about there's like half the homes that were sold recently were bought by corporations. So that it's just kind of messes with your head. But can you explain to, I would say that somebody that's not as well versed in politics as you, who is watching this, and tell them why it's important to get involved and why it's important to look over the ballot and not just vote for the big ones,
Sure. And as we've talked, Larry, I've told you that voting is fundamental. It's one of the reasons why this country was founded. Remember, the founders came here from across the ocean because they lived in a monarchy where you didn't get to express your opinion. There was a line of succession based on who was born to who, and the king or queen told you what to do. They said, we had enough of this. So this country was founded on the idea that you're qualified to vote, and you should play a role in your self-determination. Now, I've glossed over a lot because we have a horrible history with slavery and a host of other things, and women not being allowed to vote. But now, more and more people have the right to vote, and I sometimes tell people, if you don't vote, you really can't complain. Because if you don't vote, you aren't expressing your opinion. You aren't letting people know how you feel. You aren't giving direction to the people who are in office to make decisions in terms of what you'd like to see done. And it's important you vote all the way through the ballot and not just vote for president, mail it in. No,
Right.
You need to vote for everybody.
And have a better understanding of it. And it takes a little homework, but you can sit there with your iPad, and whenever it comes time to vote for propositions, try to look up as many videos as possible, educate myself as to what I'm voting for. So I want to be an educated voter, and I want people to care, because the thing is, I think people take it for granted, our freedoms, and they've kind of got lulled into distractions. And I think that never more has it been more important to be paying attention to this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the technology, we were talking about that a moment ago. It's a wonderful thing. Every candidate now has a website. You can go on and learn about the person. And I know what you're thinking. I go to a website. Of course, the candidate only says good things about themselves. Yeah, we all do. So read a bunch of websites and read a bunch of candidates' websites and see where they stand on issues. On questions like 2-0, go to the websites there. My website is Tate for FOR citycouncilatlarge.com. If you go there and look at the issues, you'll see detailed responses and positions on every major issue that my campaign is based on. But you've got to do your research.
Well, we are so happy that you joined us for the podcast. It is all about getting the message out to people from Denver. I know that being a native, I take pride in the city, and I don't kind of like the way the city looks, so I want to know what I can do. I know that there's a trend amongst people to villainize the homeless, and I don't think that's the answer, because I think some people automatically try to make a point like, oh, they're ruining people's businesses and this, that, the other. I was like, but you still have to understand there's a person.
Yeah.
And I know that a large percentage of them are battling mental health and drug addiction. So those aren't easy things for them to deal with, much less for people to help them with,
It's a humanitarian crisis, and the reality is because of bad decisions governments have made over time, we've sort of forced people into unfortunate circumstances. But we can fix it. It's the key thing. We can expand shelter space. We can expand transitional housing. And even if only 20% of the people are helped by doing this, you've made a 20% improvement on a problem, which is a huge thing to be able to do. So we need to focus on that. We need to create more affordable housing as well. And we need to create an environment where people can work as hard as they can to improve their situations. But vote no on 2-0 if for no other reason. I told you I do finance and development. That's what I've done in my career. And I work with developers. Once the city loses open space, it never gets it back, ever. So, Larry, you're a native. You grew up here. You know what Denver used to be like, and you see it now. When I came back from law school and friends would come and visit, they would say, this is the cleanest city I've ever been in before.
Right.
But they're used to D.C., Philly, New York,
right.
Baltimore, Chicago, and they come here and they're like, Denver was the cleanest city I'd ever seen before.
Right.
People aren't saying that anymore.
Right. We're starting to resemble those other cities.
We have work to do.
Yeah.
We can fix it.
Well, I think you can, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. And, it takes special people to be in charge of this stuff. So thanks for doing what you do.
I'm Penfield Tate. I'm running for Denver City Council at large. Would appreciate your vote and your support. I'm running because I love this city. #I'm from Denver.